Thank you. Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here, and I wish I had time to sit down and get to know all of you and hear about who you are, what you love to do, all about your life. I wish I could get to know you, but I want you to know that I've thought about you. I thought about each and every one of you and who would be here, and I prepared what I thought that I wanted to talk about and share, and I'm going to share some of that. But I actually spent some time, and I prayed that who would be in this room today, that God would let me know what I needed to say, that who needed to hear what I needed to hear would hear that. And the reason that I do that is because I know that there's no accident in our lives. I've learned that, and as you go out through today, not just as you're speaking to me, but as you go out through today, there's going to be something that you feel really deeply. You're going to feel it in your whole body. There's going to be somebody, one of the speakers is going to say something, and you're really going to feel it. Not just hear it, you're going to feel it. I want you to pay attention to that, because that's what you need to write down. It's for you. So there'll be some things said that's just for you. So I thought about what was I doing when I was your age? And I lived not too far from here. I lived in a golf course community on the golf course. I lived in a pretty affluent area. Most of my friends drove luxury cars. I drove a pretty cool car, but I didn't drive like a Mercedes or a BMW or, that kind of thing. But I was very blessed in many, many ways. But at home, I lived with my mom and dad, who loved each other. I was the oldest, and I had 4 younger brothers. And when I was in high school, our life had become pretty chaotic at home. There was addictions in my home. And the worse that the addictions got, the more storms seemed to come in our home, and the more chaos seemed to happen. And every day as I was going to school, I was just trying to make it through whatever chaos was going to come that day. When I was your age, I mentioned I had a car, I played sports. I was very involved in my high school. I was in leadership. I was in leadership. I did all of these things, and but I was always in the background, didn't know what kind of chaos was going on at home. And I started taking my little brothers with me everywhere I went, because I would worry about them at home. If I went to a party, it wasn't uncommon that I'd have 3 little kids in the back seat with me, who are my little brothers. I remember on senior skip day, which I know y'all would never do that, but we had a senior skip day, and we all went to the beach, and I had my little brothers with me in the car, because I didn't want to leave them and get that far away from them, because I was worried about were they going to be taken care of, were they going to eat, what was going to be going on. So that was my teenage years, and the older I got, the more the storm seemed to get bigger and bigger. Chip, how much time do I have?
12.
Okay. Just more storms, bigger and bigger. And I had to, in order to function in life and be able to make it through the storm swirling around me, there's some things that I had to do. And I started figuring out. And the very one thing that I started is I made a decision. I remember at 16 years old, I made a decision that my life was not going to look like that. I made a decision that I was not going to live a life of chaos in my life. I wasn't going to also bring addictions forward in my life and into my children's life. And I made a decision. Now, I want each and every one of you today, something's going to come to your mind that you want to be different in your life. Something's going to come to your mind. I want you to write it down. So I made that decision And then a lot of other decisions of my life because of that decision. I didn't drink in high school. All my friends, a lot of times I was the designated driver. I didn't drink because the people that I wanted to be like, and the calm and the people that I saw that were successful and had the kind of lives where there was love in their home and there was peace, they didn't really drink and do pills and do all these things. So I didn't do that because I knew that wasn't going to take me where I wanted to go. There's a lot of other decisions. Who I dated, it affected the other decisions that I made. My brothers, I mentioned I had 4 of them. They took a different path. And for time's sake, I'll just share a little bit of the older they got in their personal lives, the more chaotic their lives became personally. All of them have served time in jail. 2 of them have served significant time in prison. 2 of them have died and been killed because of drugs and alcohol. My brother that's just under me, when he was 24 years old, he was leaving Lake Conroe. He had been out, it used to be called Papa's Ice House. I think it's called something different. No, Banana Bay. That's what it used to be called. I think it's Papa's Ice House. Been out with friends, and this was the path that he took, the same kind of path that had been passed down in our family of alcohol and drugs and pills. And he's a really good guy. He's a really good athlete and wrestler, and he trained horses, and you just loved him. But this was just what he did, and he was with his friends, and he left that day and got in a car with friends who had been doing the same thing, and that didn't end well. Intoxication and speed and drugs and alcohol, that ended with ending his life that day. His best friend was arrested for vehicular manslaughter at the age of 21, and deeply impacted my life. So one is I made a decision, and I want you to really think about the decision. During this time, this was another storm that came into our lives, and I've had more storms, big storms come into my life. But you guys all live in Texas in this area, so you know about hurricanes, right? Well, you know that in the hurricane, when it's spinning around, and where we live, it goes clockwise, okay? And it can be up to hundreds of miles an hour winds. It takes everything with it. You guys have seen this. You know how it works. It's also flooding, pouring rain at the same time. It takes everything in its path, destructive, okay? But there's this place in the eye of the storm. It's perfectly still. There's actually no rain. If you look up, if you were in it, you could see sunshine. You would see blue skies with all this swirling around you. Now, when I was young and I had all these storms come into my life, I didn't realize it at the time, but God showed me how to get into that place where it was quiet and I could be still with the storms around me. There's a couple things I'm going to share with you today that can help you get into that place when the storms of your life are going on. Because raise your hand if you don't have any problems. Raise your hand if your family doesn't have any problems. Yeah. No, we all do. To some level or another, we're all in storms all the time, and sometimes they get heavier and stronger, and sometimes they calm down a little bit, but we are always dealing. But I want you to know that there's always that place that you can get to too. For me, Jesus Christ lives in that place. For me, that Jesus Christ lives there, and He helps me get there. But there's some other things that help me get there. Really simple things. I'm just going to share a couple simple things with you, okay? One, I don't have time to go into all of it, but another storm that came in my life later. By the way, I got that life. I got the beautiful life I married a man. We don't scream and yell, and we raised incredible kids where it's safe and happy. I got that life that I decided on. But in that life, our oldest son, we were leaving baseball practice one day, and he was incredible. He was a star athlete. He was 11. Already having high school team coaches trying to prepare him to come on their team at 11 years old. So incredibly athletically talented and smart and good. He got in a car accident on the way home from baseball practice, and he suffered a traumatic brain injury that left him in a vegetative state. His prognosis was if he lived, he would be a vegetable for the rest of his life. He wouldn't be able to do anything. And he did live. He did come out of a coma. And when he woke up, he was in a vegetative state. This is our oldest son. One of the things you can imagine a big storm, right? A mom's worst nightmare, father's worst nightmare. I lived at the time in the Wasatch Front in Utah, and there was about a 45-minute drive from this children's hospital to my home. I lived in the hospital for 6 weeks. He was life-flighted in. I went in with him, and I didn't come home for 6 weeks. But 6 weeks later, I started driving home and back every day. And the first time I got in my car to drive out of the hospital parking lot, I started having a panic attack, and I couldn't breathe. And I thought, I can't leave him here. I couldn't do it. And I started crying, and I couldn't see, and I thought, I'm not even going to be able to get out of the park. I'm going to get a wreck. And I pulled over, and I started to pray. And what came to my mind was to give thanks. And I thought, give thanks. My life is a disaster. How can I give thanks? And I kept saying, here, give thanks. Be grateful. Give thanks. There's a hymn that I've sang called Count Your Blessings. Came to my mind. So I was like, okay. I hear you, God. Okay, I'm grateful Travis is alive. I could think of a few things, but as I would think, I could breathe. So I started to count my blessings, and I would go, okay, I can breathe. I'd start thinking, I'm thankful for the neighbors who are watching my kids, other kids. I'm grateful for the neurosurgeon who knew how to do the surgery. The more I could think, and I started out on that 45-minute drive to being able to give thanks for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I would come up with things to be thankful for, but then I would run out. But this went on for months and months and months, and I'd make this drive every day. And every time I got in my car, I would cry because I had to leave my other little kids at home. I had 2 other little boys at home that didn't want their mama to leave, and I'd cry. So I'd drive to the hospital, and I'd give thanks. Something started happening to me. This muscle, I call it a gratitude muscle because I started using it. It started to grow. So then I'd need to leave the hospital to go home, and I'd cry, and I would say, I can't leave my baby here in the hospital alone, but I need to get home to my other babies and my husband. And so I'd have to drive, I'd have to do the hard thing and drive home. And every day, the same thing, I'd get in my car, and I'd be crying, and then I'd start giving thanks. And something happened over time. In the beginning, I ran out of things to be grateful for, but over time, one evening I pulled up into my driveway, and I had tears running down my face, but they were, this time, tears of gratitude. And I remember sitting in the car, and normally I would be rushing in, and I remember saying to myself, God, I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet of saying all the things that I'm so grateful for. Exercising that gratitude muscle, number 1, it grows. Number 2, it puts you in the eye of the storm and gets you still. Okay? You can do that. Plan a time every day. Exercise it. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. You keep doing it, it will change your life. Okay? The very last thing I want to say to you, and this is the most important thing that I'm going to say, is that God put every single one of us on this earth to shine our light. We all have a light to shine, all of us. And the world needs it. The world is not going to make it without your light, or yours, or yours. And it needs it right now. Whatever you're involved in, you're on a team, they need your light. At home, your family needs your light. You have a friend that sits by you in class, maybe they're lonely, you don't know that they need your light. The world needs your light. And it will never be the world that needs to be without your light. Okay? Really quickly, I want to say this, and I don't want you to ever forget it. Okay? The world will tell you that we're supposed to not like each other for whatever reason. There's a lot of reasons. The world would tell me we're not even really supposed to be friends, are we? We're not supposed to like each other, are we? Well, those are all lies. Those are all lies, okay? They're all lies. I want you to know the truth. And this is a secret to life. It's a secret to leadership. It's a secret to incredible life. It's the secret to finding your life and living the life that God gave you to live, that He wants you to live, and the light you're supposed to shine. It's so simple. It's to love. Love the people that they say you're not supposed to even like. Did you know that? Did you know you could be friends with your enemies? Did you know you could be friends? I'll just end with this, okay? And this applies everywhere in your life. The young man that was convicted of vehicular manslaughter for my brother's death in Montgomery County, 21 years old. The judge had planned on sentencing him to 25 years in prison. He was a young man. A young man. My father stood up to the judge and in the courtroom and asked the judge to not give him prison time and to give him another chance. My dad, who had lost his son because of this young man's irresponsibility. The judge granted it. He let this young man not go to prison. My parents asked this young man, they said, "We've lost our son. His life can't come back, but your life, you can change your life and you can have a good life, and we want you to go have a good life." And they asked him to stay in touch with him. This young man got involved with a pastor. He started going to AA. He started changing his life. And he would call my parents. And he would check in with them. And you know what my parents would say to him? "We're so proud of you. We love you." The world told us we were supposed to hate him. The world told us he murdered our brother. We're supposed to hate him and we should want the worst thing in the world from him. My dad and my mom taught me that we don't have to do that. We can love who we want to love. And as we loved and forgave this young man, it healed us. He helped heal us. He loved us back. And that love healed a lot of hurt. So make a decision. Exercise your gratitude muscle. Always, always, always choose love.
All right.